How's it going, guys? Today I will be going over my overview of the market and where it sits at the moment. Bitcoin has broken out of a significant level, but we'll get to that later on in the video. Something that I'd like to bring to everybody's attention first would be the duration between the previous all-time high and the touch or break point of that all-time high. As you can see from the past two cycles, this point is reached on the 1000th and 100th day, 1100th day, right? Where do we sit at the moment relative to that all-time high? Approximately 1100 days. Obviously, we've touched this point much earlier prior to the halving, but in terms of cycle timings, we're looking like we are on schedule for this move to the upside, right? Yeah, we could consolidate on this level until we break up to the upside, but something that I'd like everybody to consider here is the compression and expansion phases of the market. Let's have a look at 2016 here. 2016 was a earlier bull market where the consolidation phases were a lot less in duration, and the expansions therefore were less explosive. So you can see here, less explosive relative to the size of the market now, right? Obviously these moves are still quite large. However, as you can see, this range here is quite large and it expands rapidly to the upside without much time for further sideways consolidation patterns. There are many different theories on cycle phases and whatnot, and the one that I am looking at the moment is that the cycle here that we have currently could be a shortened left translated cycle. Now, if we look at the anticipated top for this cycle, as people are expecting, later into 2026, around the September to October period, which would be roughly the same timings as these previous cycle high to high, 1,400 days, 1,400 days, and 1,000. Sorry. 1,400 days. Sorry, this is a year forward. September, October 2025, right? 1,400 days. But I'd like everyone to kind of look at the angles of the market, right? The angles of approach to new levels as the bull market progresses. Obviously, in the 2020 cycle, there wasn't a shallow angle as the start of the market went directly to the 0.618 level here, right? And therefore rejected because it was quite early. And obviously there was the COVID-19 correction. However, we do see that in a normal market, which a more normal market without a black swan event, there is one angle of approach, a second angle of approach, and always, despite previous angles, there's a incredibly steep angle that occurs at the end of the cycle in red here. Right, so I'm going to keep that red line on the chart. We have so far produced two angles within this cycle. Unless this starts to progress sideways or down, we would move this orange line like so, right? But at the moment, that does seem unlikely because we've already set up the first angle and the second angle of this cycle. And we understand that the break to the upside should be occurring soon. Cool. Now that we've established those points, we also understand that from each of these cycles, the tops can be found when measuring the 4618 to 4236 from the impulse wave bounce up. I go over how I measure these in a previous video. In this circumstance, it hits the 4236. So between the 4236 level and the 4618 level is what we see as the market high. Obviously, the 2013 cycle. You can also see three angles to the highs, the last being the most violent before the bear market begins. This method of measuring out the top of the market has been backtested through each and every one of Bitcoin's cycles, despite the magnitude of each move being extremely different. 20,000 percent, 8,000% and 1,000%, yet these levels still remained in the level of measure for the top of the cycle. And if we were to measure the top of this cycle, that will put us around the 150k to 180k region. Obviously, de-risking at 150k would be the wise move to make over 180k, as that is a high risk region for diminishing returns. Cool. Now that we have scope on our anticipated high of this cycle, I don't know if anyone's been able to backtest the high of the cycle theories, but this is backtested for every single bull market for Bitcoin prior. So the assumption is that there's a likelihood that this is the high of the cycle. Now that we've established that fact, and we've established that compression ends in expansion, we need to note the angle of attack of the last phase of the cycle being the steepest. I'm going to take out the previous drawings here, and we can see that the angle of approach 250 is steeper than the previous ones, and also this angle of approach isn't as aggressive as previous cycle rallies to highs. So perhaps it could be even faster, but we're being conservative here, right? Conservative in the fact that every single of the previous bull market cycles have actually ended I'm going to be pretty, this is a bit afterwards, but in the December period. I'll mark these in red. I've marked all December period endings in red, except for the first cycle. Now that we have an idea that Bitcoin's markets generally top out in the December period or before the December period, we can look at what's coming up here. Perhaps this tops out prior to that period, and it goes straight up towards December. This idea is still in play because the following. We're following a channel in Bitcoin. The midline has been respected multiple times. Top has been respected twice, and this base is holding here as well. It is unlikely that we're going to go down now because we've broken out on the daily basis, closing basis, above this orange trend line, which has been established over 200 days. Something that will be more confirmative of this level would be the weekly closing above this level in 5 days. So until that point, the confirmation is yet to be in. However, it is looking very likely that this is the breakout to the upside. And should it be the breakout, then this ascension that Bitcoin takes could hit the top of this channel around or before that December period according to the channel. Now, to play devil's advocate on whether the market could extend to that September-ish period around here to hit that 150k region, which it doesn't need to. But let's assume that the 150k region is the top, because previous markets have shown us that that measurement is what gives us the top. The price would have to move around quite erratically before putting in a very sharp last angle of approach. So the first line would be here, second line would be here, and actually second line would be here, and the third angle would be here, which is seeming unlikely at the moment because, as we've mentioned before, compressionary phases end up, depending on how large the compression is, the expansions tend to be more aggressive the more the price is compressed. So this compression phase, we need to observe how long the expansion tends to occur. So let me go to a chart that will, well actually, let me measure this out live just so people can understand how long this could occur for. This compression phase from the top to the point of expansion is 180 days, right? I'm going to mark that out as so, and I'm going to color. Let me do this. I'm going to color the compression phases I could be very, how do you say, generous and bring it out to here. But if we mark 180, similar to this compression phase, we can start at this point right here, right? Top to the start of the move. And also we can look at, this doesn't have a far look back, the Bybit perps chart. However, we can still mark out the actual expansion phases, the different expansion phases before a major correction occurs. So let's start with this. From this bottom, how long does it take to reach the top? Approximately 90 days, right? From 180-day compression. So we get this and we turn it green. And I'm not saying that this is the exact amount of days that it will take to get to the top, but it seems likely, right? Now, we get this and we put this here. It's possible that we get to the Bitcoin high on December the 8th, or if we take this low as that point, January the 10th. This is something to look out for. But whenever that 150k region is reached, or when the top of this channel is reached, that is when you should be de-risking, if that should happen, right? There could be a case where this is a false breakout, and we somehow break down this channel, and we continue this trend into the later part of 2025. But as it stands, this expansion phase is still occurring, right? Let's take this low here and measure out 90 days. Right, from this compression, a rally occurring for 90 days happens. Again, from this low to this high, 90 days. There can be corrections in between, but the actual expansion itself takes 90 days. This low to this high, or whenever it starts, around 90 days. So there's a pattern within Bitcoin itself that expansion phases occur for 90 days, right? And we're aligning this theory that through backtesting, we've seen that tops occur in Bitcoin around that December period. Bitcoin in itself, in its structure, is appearing to have put in on a higher time frame an Elliott wave. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the final wave coming in now, the most aggressive wave, number 5. Let's go to that chart. There is no scope at the moment for the market to be ending later into next year unless this Elliott wave starts to break down and we are able to put in a third angle within the market, which is more aggressive and more conducive of a blow off top, right? So now that we've seen that, I'm not saying that you should buy now, but what I'm saying is you should already be positioned for this, right? If we're positioned for this already, then what we're looking for is continuation of this trend into that 150k region. And what I note for the altcoins as well is that, like my previous video, my say long is still open. I had my stop and I reopened the trade. It's looking like it's bouncing from the level. These things seem to align across the entire market. It's not by chance, right? There's confluence across the market that allows you to create like a thesis on best entries, and you take the opportunities once they present themselves. And what I'm trying to say is, once the market reaches the top point or near the 150k region, should it be a rapid approach to that level, no matter the price targets that you have on your alts, take the money, right? You might have some grandiose idea of when that might occur, and there could be a consolidation phase here where alts really, really fly. However, if you've been entering at the lows, the chunk of the move has been played out and you're wearing higher risk. So if you want to stay in those alts, you take majority of your profits off the table and take the rest should there be confirmation of a breakdown in the market structure, if it takes out like a lower low, right? Or if it makes a lower low. That's my analysis on the market at the moment, and it appears to be playing out as expected. Cheers.